Okay, welcome everybody to Wall Street Reporter's next super stock CEO live chat, live stream for today, October 8th. We have with us once again CloudMD, Dr. Issam Hamza. Dr. Hamza, welcome back.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks for having us again.
So a lot of exciting things happening in the telemedicine space. The stocks in this space are absolutely on fire. Everybody's making new highs, CloudMD is still trading at a substantial discount to the peers. Compared to with the valuation multiples. We're going to talk about that later because that's I think presents a tremendous opportunity for investors. But before we get into that, I kind of want to dive into today's news, which I thought is very interesting. Which is the CloudMD on demand. What is that all about?
Yeah, no, I'm incredibly excited about this. So the idea of CloudMD on demand is that we are now able to provide a direct access to doctors on demand for different services and different companies. So whether it's a large, Fortune 500 company with thousands of employees, or insurance companies with millions of customers, or pharmacies that are traditionally just brick and mortar and are trying to get an e-commerce platform and kind of compete with the Amazons and the online pharmacies of the world. We're empowering them now to kind of come to the future, which is the digital health and telemedicine. And doctors historically have been bottlenecks, and we're giving them better access. So for instance, for a corporation, if you get a worker who's injured or sick, the last thing you want to do is have them, number one, stay home longer than they need to, but they need to be able to see a doctor. And nowadays it's hard to get into a doctor's because of the COVID situation and so on. So being able to see someone from home, get their advice, get better, get a doctor's note, or a pharmacy with the ability to see a doctor and get a prescription, e-fax to the pharmacy of your choice, or get it delivered from your pharmacy. That's the future, and we're empowering these corporations to be able to come to the future now, basically.
Okay, yeah, it's definitely. And, I was actually speaking with one of your shareholders by coincidence, and he was saying he actually uses he loves this thing because he's got kids and he doesn't want to bring kids to doctors. So this he's a big fan.
Yeah.
Of the platform.
Yeah, and so I mean, one thing that I always mention is, people always talk about, okay, well, what's happening with COVID and the second wave, and that. I'm like, yes, absolutely, and you're seeing this now, both sides of the border, and numbers are going up, and telemedicine visits are going up. But what I try to explain to people is that the future of healthcare delivery is almost going to be kind of 100% triaging, virtual triaging first, and then if you need to go see a doctor in a clinic or a hospital, it's going to be by appointment only. The days of just walking into your neighborhood walk-in clinic and sitting down and having 20 people around you, and people are coughing and you don't know what they have or what you have, and you're spreading it, and the doctor doesn't know why you're there. You might be there because you need a prescription refill, or you might be there because you're having a heart attack and you're just sitting quietly in the waiting room waiting for that appointment, right? And so that idea of that blind patient not knowing what they are there for and exposing everybody to everything, I think it's old medicine, and it's better care to have 100% virtual triaging where everybody has to do a virtual visit first, whether it's a doctor or an AI triage or a nurse. And then if you need to come in, they book you an appointment for the touch, feel the abdomen or give you the vaccine or whatever.
Okay. Wow, that's actually pretty interesting. I mean, I think you touched on this before, but for some reason it hasn't quite sunk into my head yet. So so the virtual triage is really that's going to be like basically it going forward, like 90%.
It'll be standard care. I mean, if it isn't, I don't think it's good care. I mean, without it, I think it's actually more harm to put patients in situations where they shouldn't be. And it's always been about convenience and the lack of it, or the technology to allow it so that you have adoption. We have adoption now. We have buy-in from the patient and the doctors and the governments and the insurance companies let's go forward. Let's go forward with the idea that, you will still have brick and mortar clinics, but they're going to be hybrid clinics like we have. And you will have that 100% triaging before you come in. And you compensate the doctor to see you virtually first before if they need to see you even in person. And that saves the system a lot of money. That one patient that might be having a heart attack, if you can triage them in real time while they're having it, instead of waiting 3 days to come in and wait in the waiting room, that saves a lot of money. If you can, save that patient from taking a day off of work and wait 3 days and spend that whole day just getting a prescription refill, that saves a lot of money. And if you save that patient not running out of their medication for their diabetes or high blood pressure and not getting a stroke or going to emergency for a prescription refill, that saves a lot of money. So I mean, at the end of the day, it's a win-win-win for everybody involved.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. So in terms of this virtual triage, and one of the things that I want to really kind of focus on today is really the tech side of CloudMD. I mean, ironically, you're a telemed, you're basically a technology company, but I think investors, a lot of our recent live chats, we've kind of focused on the physical, the bricks and mortar component, which is obviously critical, but we've overlooked, which is I think the key value proposition for institutions for really the big picture, which is the tech side. So in terms of this virtual triage thing, how many players are in the space right now? Like how much market penetration is there with virtual triage now? Let's in North America, let's say, or worldwide, if you want to.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a player. It's a process and protocol type of thing. I mean, it's a matter of putting that into just normal protocols and processes for the industry. So the question is, right? I mean, I think what you're getting to is, is it going to be one player that is going to take over virtual triage for everything? No, you're going to get virtual triage in mom and pop. So I mean, if they do it properly and you get a clinic that actually survives and wants to continue providing good care for their own patients, they're probably going to have to adopt some form of virtual triage in their own mind. Personally, I think the future is kind of a broad-based virtual triaging, and one of the reasons we did the Doctor on Demand is that's what it offers, right? So now it offers big corporations and insurance companies and pharmacies that ability with one vendor, one company like ours, versus piecemeal and trying to figure out one vendor for this and one vendor for that. You speak of tech. I mean, our company has amazing tech now. We've bought IMD Health, which is a patient education tool. Again, the more you educate patients, the better the outcomes. The reason people don't do it nowadays is it's very time consuming, right? And again, what are the sources? Are we going to send you to a link and we don't know where that link goes and what kind of information it gives you? Or are you going to have a tool like IMD embedded where we're going to be able to say, you have diabetes and this is kind of the framework. And by the way, here's all the information that we know is vetted, is peer reviewed, is accurate, and here you go. It produces better outcomes, better satisfaction rates, and better compliance. And so it's just a no-brainer in everything we're offering. So now if we go to an insurance company or a corporation and we say, hey, we're going to take care of your patient, and not only are we going to educate them about their diabetes and whatever, but we also have Snap Clarity, which is our mental health service. And now we can take care of the fact that, they got injured, which means that they have physical problems as well as mental issues that are going to hinder them coming back to work. We can deal that as one company versus having a vendor for mental health and a vendor for physical health, a vendor for public health, and a vendor for private health. We're one of the very few companies at all that I know of that can offer that one-stop shop for a lot of these big corporations and insurance companies.
Yeah, no, I think so. This is the interesting part. Actually, we got a lot of questions coming in, so we're going to jump to the questions in just a minute. I just want to kind of finish off with this kind of focus on the tech side. And again, one of the key things we've been kind of talking about more is this. The CloudMD has this kind of whole person approach, which actually from a strategic standpoint is interesting because you have this kind of turnkey solution. You're able to capture more of the healthcare spend, if you will, and you produce a better result. For the patient, I mean, they're getting a better result.
Separate a patient into pieces, right? I mean, that doesn't make sense. I mean, there's no such thing as a patient having one problem without it being integrated with another. I mean, we know this from history that you have to treat everything to make them better. We know that there's ways that we ask questions as doctors to figure out what else might be affecting their somatic pain, or a lot of times it is mental concerns or stress or other things happening. So how can you separate those two things? I mean, how can you just say, I'm going to just treat this one thing and forget about everything else? And so treating them as a whole person and using a team-based approach and empowering them and empowering the doctors and practitioners is really the best outcome for sure.
Yeah. So, what's interesting, so I want to ask you, but the acquisition, you did of, was it IMD? That kind of didn't get a lot of investor attention, which I'm kind of surprised, because maybe they thought, oh, it's kind of a small, the revenues are not massive. What is it?
Right.
A couple million. But what I find interesting is that from a strategic standpoint, these guys have a very large, there's a footprint. It gets you in the door with, millions of patients. And so can you talk a little bit about, the IMD and some of the other, like, the benchmark deal, how those components, what's the strategic value and what are the synergies of those going forward?
Yeah, it's immediately
a competitive advantage, with everybody else.
Really creative for sure. And it'll plug into every single one of our verticals already. But I think what you're referring to, the fact that instead of having them have their own sales team trying to target this clinic or this hospital or this pharma or this corporation with that one thing of patient education, now we can, as a company, have that one salesperson or that one contract that's not capturing only the patient education contract, but also the mental health contract, the physical health contract, and the primary care contract as well, and so on. So it's a kind of that whole person thing I just talked about, of the fact that we can cross-sell, with the same customers, and also it's very synergistic. So the more eyeballs that we give them from our Juno platform, our EMR platform, the more revenue they get on their pharma sponsorship platform. So I mean, it's a win-win for kind of all aspects of our business, and you can start sharing resources and getting synergy there. So absolutely. It's one of the things that we're incredibly excited about, is combining forces with IMD and Snap Clarity and Juno and Refunction. I mean, there's only so much we can write on one page on a news release, but I can talk about an hour or more on each one of those by themselves.
Okay, so so we're going to jump into the audience questions. We've got a bunch of great questions now. And that's kind of what makes these, this is the whole point of this. It's the investor audience questions. I want to kind of end with one last thing, which is I want to kind of get your thoughts on, I'm looking at, the other peers in your space, right? Which is, you have, the Teledocs, you have Well, you have Amwell now. They're trading, these guys are trading at 30 to 40x revenues. Cloud is trading at 10x. So it seems like, you're at there's 4 times upside from here if when that multiple closes. What are your thoughts on this? And how do you close the valuation gap?
Yeah, I think it might be partly a disparity between kind of retail and institutional type of followings. We have more and more institutional following for sure. We have a few really oversubscribed bought deals recently. But if you look at, companies that are on the NASDAQ or on the major exchanges, sometimes they have more of an institutional thing. So you'll often see, an Amwell go up and then everybody in that space go up with it, on the bigger exchange. We've been kind of really supported, extremely well by the retail. Historically, they've been the champions of our stock and moving forward. Having said that, most of my discussions now are almost all with bigger institutions, US-based mainly institutions. So we're definitely getting a lot of eyeballs south of the border and with much bigger firms. So I see us moving and graduating and kind of narrowing that gap between our, let's say, competitors or comparables and us for sure over time. And as we continue to execute, you're going to see that gap narrow, because there is a definite discrepancy.
Yeah, so it's basically an arbitrage opportunity right now, while the stock is still trading OTC. the TSX venture. We got a bunch of questions about, when are you going on NASDAQ? When are you going on TSX? So I think once that happens, that would definitely, help towards closing that valuation gap.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then again, that's something we're always working on.
Okay. Now, to ask that question, what's what are the plans for uplisting to NASDAQ and the TSX?
Again, we're always actively in the process of making sure we have certain requirements and have certain documentation and everything else. So these are things that we're actively doing all the time. And when the time is right, we will do that. I can't give you an exact date for multiple reasons, but we are actively looking at that right now.
Okay. So let's start with the first question. Graham is asking about CloudMD on demand in the US.
Mm-hmm. So CloudMD on demand right now is mostly for Canadian for a couple of reasons. One, in Canada, our focus is to have that footprint, right, nationally. And the great thing about what we do and how it differentiates us with some other comparables is we don't charge anything to the patient in the provinces that we operate right now. And we want to kind of continue that if we can as much as possible. And in the States, it's a little bit different. In the States, there's no such thing as a United States plan, right? I mean, every state is different, every insurance company, and then you get the HMOs and you get the different aspects of it. I don't want to compete with the Teledocs of the world in the States. That's not what we're doing. We already have the infrastructure up here in Canada. In the States, we focus on, like I said before, the high revenue, high burden, underserviced areas, which is the chronic disease and underserviced areas, using telehealth as the great equalizer, capturing that high revenue with a small footprint.
Okay, I guess, and this speaks to, I guess, Graham's next question, the Mississippi clinic.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and we'll have updates on that in the next little while. Again, there's a reason that sometimes it seems quiet, is that there's a lot of moving pieces in the background. And this is a very competitive space, and we want to make sure that we hit the ground running and make this very, very successful.
Okay. A lot of questions from Graham today. Okay. So, on-demand service, does that include Snap Clarity?
Again, our investors are incredibly smart, and they are starting to put the pieces together. So they're starting to see all these different things like IMD and Snap Clarity, and seeing that one customer that we're offering CloudMD to, CloudMD on demand to, is the same customer that will probably be paying for Snap Clarity's mental health services and the patient education tools and so on.
Okay, so we got actually a couple of people asking, why is the stock, essentially a variation on why is the stock not going up every day?
Yeah, I don't follow kind of day to day, the stock price or anything else. It's extremely busy, kind of where we are right now with everything we're doing and the pipeline that we're working on. Having said that, I mean, we have a really broad-based coverage and support, and we've traded hundreds of millions of shares, in the last few weeks, and so I see good support kind of wherever we are, and consolidation is not a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, well, people get used to the stock going up every day.
25% every day kind of thing. Yeah.
The stock by now it's 50.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's an exciting space, and you have to be excited about kind of where the space is going and how very few players there are that have good business plans. So I'm extremely excited about the future.
Okay.
I can't go into partnerships that we're talking to right now.
Okay. Mark is asking about this insurance product.
Yeah, I can't go into details, but obviously there's reasons that we got Snap Clarity and some other companies.
Okay. Question about more analyst coverage. You have a couple of analysts right now, right?
Yeah, so we have 4. We have Beacon, Canaccord, Echelon, and Mackie. The average target price right now is $2.80 Canadian. So it's incredible upside from here just on their targets right now.
Okay. I guess the question here is integrating your tech into wearables such as Apple Watch? Is that a possibility?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think people are watching the news on Apple and Apple Health and all that right now. So I'm a big believer in integration into wearables. I'm not going to get into the hardware space, so we're not going to create our own hardware, CloudMD wearable. It's going to be integration with the ones that are going to be very successful in the space, like the Apple Watches and the Fitbits and so on.
Okay. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Benchmark is expanding definitely, across the US, but IMD as well. So IMD is expanding not just in the US, but also internationally, Middle East, Mexico, and some other places. So the great thing, again, like I said, is that we can cross-sell various services and opportunities and software to different, the same customer, basically.
Okay, interesting question. You have any metrics coming out on the app?
If we do announce it, we'll announce it everywhere with a press release. I can't disclose it here, anything more than what we announced before. But
Okay.
the number, I mean, you can obviously see the growth. I mean, yeah.
Okay. Updates on AI and Watson?
Yeah, so the IBM Watson, the platform that we created with IBM and we own it, it's called Evita. We are actively, training it and having it do more and more features. And when it's time, what we'll do is we'll turn it on for our customers across Canada, and then eventually, on the US side, hopefully as well. And it basically does, if you're not familiar with it, it's an AI medical office assistant. So it replaces the person at the front desk that typically answers the phones and does a lot of clerical stuff. So it's able to make an appointment, change an appointment, give you directions, hours of operation, how to prepare for the exam. It's also omni-channel, so that you can use it on a website, on an app, or even a phone call, so that it can plug into that part of it. And you can make it more and more smarter, so that it actually will identify you and be able to know that it's you and be able to do things for you as like a individual.
Okay. Here's an interesting question. I guess I think he's asking, can you get into the insurance industry?
I can't clarify more than what we announced this morning in the news release with that. It's definitely a space that we are actively looking at, and I think we'll have more clarity on that in the future.
Okay. We have the usual question about Well. How do you compare with Well?
Yeah. Well, again, I mean, I always say the same thing. It's kind of a broken record, but it's a great company, and it's a great leader in Hamid, and he's doing an amazing job. I think their market cap now is over $1 billion. I mean, that's amazing in Canada, right? So that's he's done an amazing job that way. The launch of the App Store is an interesting idea. So basically, I would say the differentiation is that our software, our Juno software, has an open API. We do have other apps that plug into it, some of the same apps that are on that app store, so that's not unique or exclusive. But having said that, we also have our own technology in our patient portal that's already built in. So we already have in our patient portal, any of our users, any of our clinics across Canada that are using our software have now not only the electronic medical record, as a doctor or practitioner, they also have a patient portal that has 24/7 online booking for free. They have secure messaging for free. They have the ability to do telemedicine. They have the ability to share the chart. They have the ability to plug in the AI chatbots and opportunities that way. They have the ability to plug in the wearables. So a lot of these different apps that might be out there, the third-party apps that are out there, are already doing stuff that we already have fully integrated in our own product. And so we don't need to joint venture or revenue share with any other companies for any of these things. And we're turning on more features along the way. So that's the advantage, I guess, of having our own in-house developers, our own app, and our own technology, that we can continue turning on features instead of relying on third-party vendors.
Okay, so we got Spence is back. This is question one of, we may have 10, Spence. So always great question. So,
yeah,
Dr. Hamza, what's
yeah.
what's
So what he's basically saying is, after COVID, whenever that is, whether it's 3 months or 3 years from now, would provincial governments around Canada stop the telemedicine codes or the billables under the healthcare plan to do telemedicine? And the answer to you is twofold. One, and I've said this before, one, I think is political suicide. I can't think of a government anywhere that will be able to turn it off and not get backlash from everybody involved, whether it's the patient or the doctor. Can you imagine a year from now them turning off a telemedicine code bill and telling patients that they have to go to the old way of walking into a walk-in clinic or going to the doctor's office, and the doctor doesn't know why they're there and people are coughing around them, and you're going to that old model again? I can't see it happening. And again, like I said, I think that's political suicide. But even if they did, in Canada, there's something called the Canada Health Act. And so if there's something that the government pays for, a service, a health service, then we are not allowed to charge you for that service in Canada, right? So if there's something publicly available, we're not allowed to pay for it, or we're not allowed to charge you for it. But if that goes away for some reason, we can start charging you for it. So then you just start charging for that service, and the patient will pay for that convenience at that point. Having said that, I can't see it going away anywhere in the world. It's bad medicine.
Genie's out of the bottle, basically.
It's gone. I mean, can you imagine as a patient as well? I mean, if you had a doctor that you go to and they don't want to do telemedicine or online booking, they make you call in on a Monday morning and you wait hours, you take a day off of work and you drag your kids out of school. And then you have another doctor across the street that has telemedicine, patient portal, convenience, secure chatting and all that. You're going to end up becoming a customer for the first time ever. And you're going to say, well, why am I doing this? Like, why am I wasting all this time and effort and not getting value and not getting good care that way and not going with the future? So I think you're going to get a buy-in from everybody, and I don't see it going backwards ever.
Okay. Let's see. Graham is asking about the Green Party. So they want to invest into mental health.
Yeah. I won't talk about any kind of government subsidies or contracts and stuff that we might be working on. But what I would say is that mental health, again, as I always say, has always been the biggest driver of telehealth until COVID came, right? And then COVID made it so that everybody, that's all they talk about is COVID and telemedicine. But really, it's mental health. I mean, if there's one thing that I would say that is actually better suited for virtual care than physical care, like in person, it's mental health counseling. Can you think of, like, when you have someone who's anxious, their underlying disease is an anxiety disorder, a panic attack, social phobia, and you're asking them not only to take a day off of work or drag out of school, but sit in the waiting room. They have 25 people around them. They think that people are staring at them. They're running behind. It's 45 minutes late. You put them into a smaller room after that. And because you're late, you have to rush, through a 5-minute visit on why they're having anxiety or depression. That's not a good experience, right? And you see why you don't get good outcomes and you don't get buy-in from, especially teenagers, right? Like, they don't come to doctors to talk about their anxiety or depression because it's a horrible experience traditionally. So this whole idea of mental health has lost its stigma. So there's no such thing as not being able to talk about your mental health disease now. There's no stigma against it. And that's good. And you're getting the buy-in from the companies, the insurance companies, the government agencies, the celebrities. Everybody now is talking openly about it. And you're going to see this as being a major, major focus of our company going forward, for sure. It's part of our chronic disease that we talk about.
Yeah. That's very interesting. I mean, really, every time we have you on, the kind of the puzzle, everything looks
fitting in a little bit better.
Everything is coming into focus now. Here's an interesting question: how many clinics do you plan to? Is it a number or is it size? What's the scope?
It's not a number, and I probably won't go into numbers. What I'll just say is that we're going to have a footprint across Canada, and we're going to do it very smartly. Every one will be accretive, and there'll be a reason for that clinic, whether it's location, geography, or type of services that they offer. There'll be a reason for it. And so we will have broad coverage everywhere.
What was the triage, this question here?
Right. Yeah, I think where we talk about virtual triage as being the future, you have two parts of it, right? So you have, let's say if we're just talking about our own company, the whole point is that any one of our clinics across the country that use our software will be able to employ their own virtual triage in their own practice. We allow that. We encourage that. That's what our platform is there for. And they're starting incorporating it in the process and protocol part of it. And then we have our own clinics, our direct consumer offerings, our virtual offerings, CloudMD on demand. And yes, we will be able to triage to either our own clinics or that patient's own clinic, or we can do referrals to specialists. We can send you for blood work. We can do everything. Basically, we are a full service clinic. That's the whole point of it, is that we are a full service clinic. We have nurses, we have specialists, we have everything.
Okay. Interesting question here from Gavin. He's asking if the recent acquisitions have put you in touch with some of the big players, and how receptive are they to, CloudMD's, strategy?
Yeah, I'm not going to elaborate more, but basically that's exactly one of the reasons that we acquired IMD and Benchmark and Snap Clarity and so on, is that we have access to some very big names now.
Okay. Will the next earnings release include revenues from the recent deals?
If we haven't announced the close yet, then no. If we announce the close, then yes. The Q3 is over at this point. Q4 is now, so most of them will be in Q4.
Okay. Spence coming in with question number 2. Are insurance companies refusing to cover virtual, the mental health?
Not that I've seen. I've seen the opposite, actually.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Here we go. We got a couple more questions coming in. More mental health here. Graham is asking.
Yeah. So again, it comes down to the the Canada Health Act and what's covered, what's not covered under the provincial plans. So if you get counseling from your family doctor or psychiatrist, it's covered, up to a point. If you're getting it from a counselor or psychologist, then it's not covered by the provincial health plan, and you charge privately. And usually, insurance companies and corporations pay for that historically, and they're expanding that from what I've seen.
Okay, Graham is asking about any ideas of getting into the lab business.
I think we've talked a lot about what fits our model and what works in terms of chronic disease management and so on. I probably would leave it at that.
Okay. Let's see here. We get a couple questions about. I saw a couple of questions about cybersecurity, and is the patient data housed? I saw a question: is it going to be housed in Canada or the U.S.?
Yeah, Canadian data is housed in Canada, and U.S. data is housed in U.S. So we have it separated. We take cybersecurity incredibly seriously, to the point where we have security experts on our team, like I said before, that dealt with the U.S. military, cybersecurity, and we have teams like with Patrick Lowe from Privacy Horizons, partnerships with Privacy Horizons. And we take it very seriously, and it's a major effort on ours to not just be okay, but be hopefully the best and forward-looking in terms of security.
Okay, I guess there's a question about the TELUS Health data breach. Is that
Yeah, there's been a few breaches, whether it's Life Labs or TELUS Health, and then I think there's Babylon. I think in the UK or something had some sort of quirk in their software. Yeah, I mean, it's always really important to take this seriously. The thing about our company, though, is if you remember, we bought an EMR company, electronic medical records company, that's been around for so long, right? Like a decade or more. And so they've been around. They've already had that experience with cybersecurity. It's the same back-end infrastructure that we're talking about. So it is something that we take seriously.
Okay. Question. This is something we've been talking about a little bit more. More questions. Global expansion opportunities.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously North America is kind of our main focus right now. I mean, it's a $4 trillion market as it is. We all are always being very careful not to get ahead of our skis and going into places that we are not familiar with, or that will be kind of bottomless pits and so on. So we always, if you look at every one of our acquisitions, it's been very strategic acquisitions with a player that's already successful and a standalone in that space. And so, you know, as we expand, you'll see that as well. You'll see that where we have a team that's already successful on the ground wherever we are.
Okay, so we're just about out of time. So I want to ask you, I want to kind of wrap up with two last questions, which is, and this kind of speaks to, I guess, some of the questions we've had from the audience. What's next? What kind of big news can we expect over the next, let's call it next 8 weeks?
Yeah, I can't go into details of what the news will be. I think our investors are very, very smart, and they kind of see where we're going. We're growing very quickly. We're very well cashed up. We have a strong pipeline of acquisitions as well as organic growth opportunities that we'll definitely talk about. I'll keep it high level like that, but you know, there's been no shortage of news. If anything, we're trying to space out news as much as possible because we have so much to talk about.
You know, actually, it's interesting that we're talking about the research on the Canaccord, their last report.
Yeah.
You know, the research note. You know, they basically had a comment in there about you know, the 20 million in cash that you have. You know, what kind of impact that could have on you know, making some you know, accretive acquisitions. So you know, it's kind of interesting. Anybody who's definitely should check out that report from Canaccord.
We have four analyst reports right now. They all increased their target prices. Like I said, the target is now 2.8. And, you know, just our run rate based on the companies that we announced so far, you know, we're pretty close to 30 million in revenue run rates right now, just without any future organic growth or any other acquisitions. And we're still incredibly well cashed up. So it's only upside from here, I hope, and we'll just continue to execute on our business plan.
Yeah, I guess the takeaway from that note, from the Canaccord note, is that, you know, those acquisitions, you know, the cash that you're going to be deploying, obviously also makes the current valuation even cheaper, based on pure comp.
Yeah. And those companies, it's not like we bought them and they were losing money. A lot of them were positive EBITDA companies and standalone as it is already. So it's not like we bought it and we're going to have to pour millions of dollars to make them successful. I mean, they're already successful to begin with, and it's accretive immediately.
Okay. Oh, look at this. We got actual customers here.
Great.
Not
yeah.
only they're investors, but they're a customer.
And you know what? And that's part of the exciting part, right? Like, I mean, you know, the fact that you can actually use a service and invest in it as well, I think is exciting, because you can you know, get involved with it and see it grow, as well as, you know, get rewarded from that too.
Absolutely. Okay, so last question, which we always ask is, you know, Dr. Hamza, top 3 reasons why investors should consider CloudMD today?
So the first thing, like I said before, it's an exciting space that's just at, you know, like I said, the hockey stick analogy. It's at the very beginning of that major kind of big push. There's very few players in it, and I think we have one of the best business plans there. We're growing very quickly. We have a strong pipeline of growth opportunities and very well cashed up. And I would say thirdly is that I think we have, you know, one of the best teams out there. So every one of our acquisitions, we brought in like superstars in that vertical. So they're already, you know, well known and great in their own right, and now they're on our team driving that vertical. And so we're expanding our team with like proven leaders, and you know, I could talk hours just on the people. So I think all this bodes well for the future, and I thank you again for your support.
Fantastic. Okay, Dr. Hamza, we'll see you probably in a couple of weeks on the next live stream. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.